What are the best restaurants? Where should you stay away from? These are all discussions you'll find in an expat group. And you can also ask questions yourself, and you can say, listen, I'll be visiting the area. Maybe you are exploring moving abroad, and, ask any questions or concerns that you may have. And I find it really effective because the people that are participating in these groups, that are active in these groups, really tend to have their finger on the pulse of the communities there, of the expat communities, as well as what's going on locally. So you want to make sure that you stay in touch with the moderators or whoever's organizing the group, whoever's most active, and ask those questions. You might even be able to find a place to stay. You might find an Airbnb hookup or a home away from home type of thing through those expat groups, because they are also talking about real estate and places to stay for long-term rentals and even shorter-term rentals. So I think that's a great resource. It's a way to really talk to people who are already in the country, and you'll really get the most up-to-date information that way. Number 3 is to find a Spanish tutor that lives in that country and schedule regular conversations with them before your trip. So this is really good to do if you're planning, at least 90 days out. Make sure you look on a site like italki. You can also go to our website, SpanishConSalsa.com, and just look for one-on-one lessons. If you're traveling to Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic or Colombia, you can find one of our amazing team members on our site. And just a heads up, we will be talking to 2 of our team members on the podcast next week. So make sure you're subscribed so you'll hear from them directly, so you can get a little bit more information about them and sort of have an introduction before you book a lesson. But in any case, you want to look for someone who lives in that country and who is a Spanish teacher, and that's the person you want to practice speaking Spanish with. And there's a few reasons for this. Number 1, just like with the expat group, this is somebody who's living in that country, so they can answer any of your questions, any concerns you may have about safety, about how things really are, about maybe issues that are happening in the news that may be important to know about before you visit. That is your person to ask. So you want to look for someone that possibly lives close to the city that you're traveling to as well, although that's not necessary. But that can be a really good resource for finding out places that you should visit, places that are off the beaten path that aren't super touristy, so to speak. So that person can be a really good resource for you. And if you schedule regular lessons with them, so I would say at least once a week, if you can do more than that, that's great. You will have more experience with listening to the accent of that particular country. So as you know, Spanish is very, very different depending on where you are in terms of how it sounds. A lot of the words might be the same or similar, but you might find that the way they're said may be unintelligible if you're not familiar with hearing that accent at all. So this is a great way to kind of get your ears accustomed to the accent of the country that you're visiting. And you also might learn some of the regional language there, because there are also lots and lots of different words that are spoken only in one country, right? They're very, very country specific. So booking regular lessons with a Spanish tutor or teacher that is from that country or living in that country is a great way to get used to the accent and get more up-to-date information about how things are right now in that country. Number 4, follow the news in the country, I'd say about 4 to 6 weeks before you travel. So on social media, you can look for the national newspaper that's published from that country or from the city that you're going to visit. You can also go directly to their website. There's usually a newspaper. Many of them are called El País, but there are El País for different countries, I believe. But just search for what is the most popular daily newspaper in your country and find their websites. They may also have a YouTube channel. They may have videos you can watch, but just something so you can, again, keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening before you go. This serves a few purposes. So not just to keep you informed as a traveler, but also so you know what are the current events and issues in that country. This really helps when it comes to having conversations. So just like in English, you might go to the store and people are talking about what's in the news. it's really important to know what's going on in the news in that country. So everything that happens in the United States is not necessarily news abroad, and there may be things happening there that you wouldn't know about if you didn't read their local newspaper. So make sure you just get accustomed to doing that at least once a week. Just keeping up with the news, reading some of the headlines. You can also look for things you're interested in, like if you like sports, read the sports section, look for restaurant reviews or, whatever it is, right? Use that as a resource because, again, you're looking for up-to-date information and you want to be able to be conversational and be aware of what's going on when you get there. So keeping up with the news for about a month to 6 weeks before you visit the country is a great way to be able to have more in-depth and informed conversations with people when you get there. And of course, a great way also to practice your Spanish because you'll probably learn some new vocabulary in the process. And my last piece of advice is my last tip for planning to travel abroad to a Spanish-speaking country is to plan activities in non-touristic areas. And I think this is really important. If you are listening to this podcast and you love learning Spanish through music, you love Latino culture, and you want to travel and meet people and talk to people, you have to get out of your comfort zone and plan some activities that aren't for tourists. So look for things to do that are planned by locals for locals, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be a touristic activity. You want to find some things that you can do so you can actually start meeting people, have that real immersion experience, and don't just sort of stay behind the walls of the hotel and resort sipping pina coladas or whatever, right? So try to plan for some activities that are not in sort of that tourist guide that you might have. Now, an excellent resource for this is actually meetup.com. And you may be familiar with meetup.com for, some domestic activities, but they actually do have international meetups as well. So just look on meetup.com and search for the city that you're visiting, and you're likely to find several results of activities that, again, are just for locals. You may find some things for expats. You might find some language meetups, but you can find any activity you want. You can find hiking, yoga, whatever it is that you're into. I'm pretty sure there'll be a meetup group for it there. So look on meetup.com, search for the city that you're visiting. Another resource for this too is if you're on Facebook and you're in these expat groups, you might see events pop up as well. You can check out Eventbrite. They might have some things, again, that are more geared toward locals. So check out those types of activities. See how many you can sign up for in advance because a lot of the meetups do plan out their events at least a month in advance. So you'll have some time there to find something that fits into your overall travel schedule, right? So make sure you check out some activities that are geared towards locals and you get outside of the box with just sort of the normal day-to-day tourist activities and excursions. So those are my 5 tips for preparing to travel abroad this summer if you're planning to visit a Spanish-speaking country. Number 1, make sure you check the safety requirements, not just COVID, but what are all the exit and entry requirements for that country and for coming back to the U.S. or wherever your home country is. Make sure, number 1, you check any safety and testing requirements before